Hello, welcome to my channel. Yes, I'm back finally with another story. It's taken me a while to come up with this. Don't know why, just seems to have a lot on at the moment. But anyway, yes, I have another 5 random word story. But before I get into it, just want to remind you that my first novel, Elena in Exile, is available. You can actually pick it up in bookshops, I believe. If it's not on the shelf, which it probably isn't, let's be honest, you can ask at the counter. It's listed on Waterston's website, which is nice, and Barnes & Noble as well. But of course, you can also get it on Amazon or any other online bookshop, ideally. So yes, it's getting good reviews. Not many so far, but I'm working on it. So if anyone out there has read it, please pop a little review on Amazon. It really does help. Independent authors get noticed by the algorithm, which is the only thing we live by these days. Anyway, so here is another short story. And this is based on the following random words. And this is story number, I haven't got a clue because I forgot to check. So I'm going to put the number on screen now. That's the number of this story. And it's called Needling. Having total facial recall could be both a superpower and a curse. I never forget a face was such a cliche, and yet for Naomi an entirely true one. She'd pass people in the street she was convinced she knew deeply, then realise she'd merely served them cocktails while a student 9 years previously. She'd spot boys she'd kissed at parties when she was 16, and now, 15 years later, she'd pass one on the street and smile in recognition, while the man, different in clothing, hairstyle and facial hair, but undeniably Billy Broadhurst, would frown in mid-confusion, then smile in full politeness and breeze on by, oblivious. Naomi had quit her cocktail waitressing when she found that the constant sense of eerie yet unshared familiarity outside her nocturnal work too unsettling in this small student town. Everyone recognised her in the bar. Of course they would. She was the only female mixologist, as her employers insisted on calling her, working at Red Eye. Plus, Naomi was told her unusual blend of Southeast Asian eyes and Jamaican skin tones made her exceptionally pretty. She was regularly told this by men, and occasionally women, who had one too many of her porn star martinis. Naomi found her current position as assistant manager of an expensive designer clothes boutique much more amenable. Most of the students who'd been regulars in the bar couldn't afford these prices, so she stopped recognising hundreds of young folk in the street. The shop seemed to survive on the sheer bloody-mindedness of Naomi's eccentric employer. Having seen the weekly receipts on a couple of occasions, Naomi wondered how Mildred could afford to pay her. She sometimes wondered if she should just quit to keep her employer's business afloat. But Mildred preferred sitting in the back room, door open, so she could cast an occasional eye on the shop floor. Singer sewing machine whirring, while Naomi was the public face of Mildred's. A shop that had too few regulars for Naomi's usual brain to kick into facial storage mode. The perfect circumstance. However, Naomi couldn't hide forever. Eventually, a familiar face intruded on her blissful anonymity. To identify the tall, waif-like figure of Maggie Simonson, Naomi didn't even require her old nemesis to look up from the summer dress she was perusing, arm in arm with a stockier, shorter, and older woman. Interesting. If Maggie was a lesbian, that explained a lot of the merciless teasing Naomi had endured as a child. Displaced or projected self-hatred, perhaps, for being closeted for so long. Perhaps Naomi should forgive her and simply be welcoming and forget that anything happened. Like the time Maggie had pinned a photo of Naomi and her best friend Catherine in their swimsuits on the school notice board with Lesbos scrawled upon it in red lipstick, framed in kisses. That must have taken some methodical preparation. It sounded like very little then, but it had stung back in 2011 and had caused Catherine, Cat, to withdraw slightly from their friendship. Now, that had caused the real hurt. However, that wouldn't have happened without Maggie's interference. She'd lost the only real friend she had, a fellow inquiring mind, and the only other straight-A student in Muirsclough High School. Or what about the subterfuge Maggie had enacted to get Craig Hinchcliffe to ask her out to the end-of-year prom, surprising and delighting Naomi, who who'd taken out the seams of a silky blue number with a daringly plunging neckline, only to be stood up and left to attend the prom solo, while Cliffy was seen snogging the face off Alice Carmichael down by the riverside late that evening. Maggie had constructed that whole arc of hope, excitement, disappointment, and despair. Fortunately, Naomi was not one for elaborate revenge. A small, symbolic act of defiance would be all that was required. Maggie wouldn't recognize her one-time nemesis. Naomi was certain of that. In the 12 years since graduation, Naomi's skin had cleared up. She'd lost close to 2 stone, cut her hair into a chic bob, straightened and dyed it a dark, rich red, and lost the thin round specs for contact lenses that dried her eyes and made her squint. Naomi was unrecognizable. A peal of familiar laughter from the sundress racks provided the confirmation that Naomi didn't need as she opened her sewing case under the counter and extracted her thinnest yet strongest darning needle. She picked up an armful of newly priced blouses and sidled over towards the dress racks. Maggie was holding up a peach-coloured floaty number against her unamused partner, semi-mockingly, a familiar, half-teasing, half-serious tone. "Oh, come on now, Billy. Wouldn't you like to explore your feminine side?" Billy laughed with that much humour. "Fuck that Laura Ashley shit. They got any jeans?" On cue, Naomi sashayed over. "Other end, by the leather jackets?" "Now that's more like it," Billy said, with the ghost of a wink, strutting away from her partner, who hadn't even turned round to look at Naomi. Your girlfriend fancies me, Naomi thought, with childish amusement. It made her feel powerful. Maggie now draped the dress against her own slender frame, stretching onto tiptoes to see if it would work with heels, ogling a full-size mirror, her crop top rode up, offering a delicious 2 inches of pale midriff. Passing by, Naomi deftly jabbed with her needle, concealed between 2 knuckles. "Ah, what the fuck!" yelped Maggie, whirling, as Naomi put on her best solicitous, yet alarmed shop assistant expression. "Oh no, what's happened?" she said, throwing her blouses over a rack and examining Maggie's side. She'd gone deep. She'd drawn the tiniest droplet of crimson blood. Good. Naomi turned to examine the blouses she'd been carrying, lifting one up to reveal the needle quickly thrust into the hem. "Shit, someone must have left this in. I'm so sorry. Here, can I—" Maggie batted Naomi's hand away, narrowing her eyes as if seeing her for the first time, almost as if, "Mags, what's up?" A concerned Billy clutching a pair of skinny jeans. "Put those back, we're getting out of here. They fucking stabbed me." Maggie showed her the near-invisible wound. It was improving already. Maggie was impervious, physically at least. "How did that happen?" said Billy, directing the question at Naomi. "A misplaced needle. I'm so sorry." Billy harumphed, but already seemed bored of the potential for confrontation, and yet she held on to the jeans. "Look, take them, as an apology," Naomi suddenly said, meaning the jeans. Maggie threw the peach dress aside. "I don't want the mangy thing. Let's go." Billy shrugged and handed the jeans, folded, back to Naomi, who thanked her with studied awkwardness. It paid to be all but invisible sometimes. As the bell by the door tinkled on the woman's exit, Billy found herself singing under her breath. Something from an old John Hughes movie her dad had given her on Blu-ray, something perky and hopeful. Mildred's sewing machine whirred in odd accompaniment. It hadn't stopped for one moment, even during the contretemps. She'd heard nothing. Naomi slotted the needle back into its paper sleeve and zipped up her sewing case. Today would be a good day. There you go. Thought I'd try something a bit different with that one. Yes, I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll probably send it out somewhere once I've gone through it again, edited it a few times. This is what I tend to do. I've had 35 stories published as a result of this experiment, and I should mean to keep doing it, but it won't be as often as I did in the past. I'd like to get up to 1 story a week. That seems reasonable. Oh, and I did recently open a Patreon account, which I will put on screen. The purpose for this is to share more of my stories in written format, so if you or anyone you know prefers to read than to hear me read my own stories, then they can go there, and for a tiny stipend every month they can have original content from me. I'll be doing some videos on there alone, not on here. as in I'll be doing some exclusive videos for there, and I'll be doing some other things as well. So check out the Patreon account, and if you're feeling generous, you could lob me a couple of quid. Or you could buy Elena in Exile. And I will be back with something else very soon. Thanks for listening. Bye.